Golden State Media Concepts Fantasy Football Podcast is your one-stop shop for fantasy football news and advice. Can't decide on who to draft on the first round? Going gaga on how to line up your team. We've got you covered. Traditional league, dynasty league, PPR league, IDP league, even daily fantasy football league. Join us as we break down all the questions of fantasy football. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Fantasy Football Podcast.
Hello there, everybody, and welcome to the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. Okay, guys, I'm your host, as always, Marcus Vargas, and today our show is going to be full of rankings, but a little bit different this time. You know, I did my post-draft rankings, you know, I've talked players and rookies, but now I want to go division by division, and give my opinions on how I think those divisions are going to shake out next football season. And the reason why I want to do this, guys, is because, you know, I've been thinking a lot about, you know, a lot of these teams' drafts, and, you know, it felt like I said before, it felt like, you know, not many teams had, you know, bad classes. It felt like this was definitely one of the deeper classes of recent memory. There were a lot of players that slipped very far due to various reasons, various team needs, other teams making surprise picks. And, you know, I think, you know, we're going to see a lot more closer divisions than we usually do. And, of course, you know, that always changes when the season actually rolls around. You know, I mean, just to refer to the NBA, when all the super teams split up and it wasn't about big threes anymore this past season, you know, we're talking more about duos and the teams being more even. Some teams still severely disappointed, while other teams were clearly dominant. So, of course, that could happen just the same in the NFL. But as of right now, you know, it seems very, very interesting. So I want to just go through the AFC, all the divisions, NFC, all the divisions, and give you my take, because I do have some surprise choices for division winners. And, of course, I did my power rankings, and I know a pick or two here might not coincide with my power rankings of the immediate post-draft, but, you know, this is my, you know, sort of post-draft sort of division rankings, and how I think they might go. So, to start it off, guys, I want to start with the AFC, and we're just going to go north, south, east, west for both sides. So we'll start with the AFC North, with the Baltimore Ravens. I think this is pretty clear cut. The Baltimore Ravens are going to win this division. I don't think they face much competition, you know, besides the Steelers. I think the Steelers, you know, under Mike Tomlin, they always find a way to make the playoffs, you know, and they even when they have a disappointing season, it's not like they're doing absolutely terrible. You know, I don't think, you know, the Steelers are a team synonymous with winning. They have a great franchise and history, and they always find a way to get it done, even when they don't have a starting quarterback, basically, right? So I think getting Big Ben Roethlisberger back is going to be great. Having a healthy Juju Smith-Schuster, along, you know, James Washington, Deontay Johnson, they figure to use Chase Claypool as a big weapon. They've talked about it. You know, it's been reported that, you know, the Steelers are eyeing him as a possible big weapon for Ben Roethlisberger. So I think with Ben, you know, getting that offense in rhythm is really going to help them, because their defense was solid last year, guys. I mean, especially if you had them in fantasy football, even, you know, they were I think they were top 2 fantasy football defense. So, you know, they're very, very solid. They produce a lot of sacks. They produce turnovers. You know, getting Minkah Fitzpatrick has really helped the secondary, and they're a solid group. You know, TJ Watt's on that team, Devin Bush, you know, so making sure that offense is back to speed is really going to help them, but they're not going to take the division. They're my number 2 pick, so it would be Ravens, Steelers, and I think the Steelers are pretty much a clear-cut second. Now, this is where it gets close, and where I think it'll be sort of a flip-flop either choice here, right? Based on what we've seen so far. Of course, anything can happen. And, a lot of people were picking the Browns to win the division last season when everything was on paper and you saw all the talent. But as we all know, especially if you're a Cowboys fan, just because you have the talent on paper doesn't mean it's going to translate on the field, doesn't mean you have great coaching, doesn't mean your culture is great, and it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to go win the Super Bowl. So, right here at the number 3 spot for the AFC North, I have the Cleveland Browns. And honestly, I'll take your pick if you want to put the Bengals here and the Browns last. The only reason I'm putting the Browns here, though, is because Freddie Kitchens isn't the coach anymore. They bring Kevin Stefanski in. I don't think Freddie Kitchens should have ever had that head coaching job. I think, there's guys like, for example, not to just toot my own team's horn, but Eric Bieniemy, the offensive coordinator for the Kansas City Chiefs. He's a leader. He's a guy with a gritty attitude. He's a tough love kind of guy. He's got that, he's not a mean guy, but he's just not soft. He's not going to, sugarcoat things. I think he's got a great attitude, great leadership role that he was interviewed for coaching positions, but wasn't given the spot. I think, had the Browns had a different coach last season, their dynamic and culture would have been much better and it would have led to more wins. Now, though, they have, new coach. I think, they've realized how badly they underperformed last season and they have a message to send. I think they come out hungry this year. And I think, out of any team in this division, I forgot to mention, I also do like a team in this division where I see them making the biggest improvement, who could finish much higher than where I have them. And I think the Browns here are the team that can kind of go from, not saying they finished worse, but kind of from worst to first in a sense where, last year they were severely disappointing. I think they could surprise us, maybe taking the number 2 spot in the division, but I don't think they'll beat out the Ravens. The Ravens are an absolute monster. So yeah, I have the Browns at number 3. They're super talented. I think they get their stuff together and perform more to what we expected last season. Now at the bottom of the division, I have the Cincinnati Bengals just because, of course, Joe Burrow was absolutely electric. Had the single best college football season ever for a quarterback. He's coming in, played in a sort of NFL style offense. Something where it's easily translatable to the NFL. He can come in, but it's the Cincinnati Bengals. He is a rookie quarterback. We can't just say, how many times have people bought into the hype and the quarterback been a bust? I mean, hey, Mitchell Trubisky was selected before Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson. You always have to remember that. No matter how good these guys looked in college, it doesn't always translate into the NFL. No matter what, it's just a thing that you can't necessarily predict. There's no one thing that you can say, this means that this guy's going to be amazing in the NFL. So that's why I have them at the bottom. I'm going to have to see, how the first couple of games go, how Joe Burrow settles into the NFL, how the receivers around him can help him, if A.J. Green is going to be able to play, the team is also, recently they declined John Ross's 5th-year option. Is he going to have a bigger role, or are they going to sort of fade him out? Could he possibly be dealt? It's things like that do, affect how the team plays. Having a steady locker room, a steady culture, and no sort of negative drama around your team definitely helps. So, of course, I got to see what Joe Burrow can do, how the team meshes well together. And until then, I'm having the Bengals here finishing at the bottom of the division. All right, moving on to the AFC South. And here's where I know I have sort of a surprise pick to win the division, but maybe not too much of a surprise to a lot of you. I have the Colts winning this division, and it's because before Andrew Luck retired, guys, a lot of people had the Colts as, dark horse, possibly a Super Bowl team. They have such a solid roster all around. Their offensive line is quite possibly the best in football. They had a solid ground game with Marlon Mack. They had solid receivers with T.Y. Hilton. Paris Campbell's on that team. Chester Rogers, I believe, was on that team, not doing terribly. And Zach Pascal was a solid receiver. So they had, I'm not saying they had, the greatest offensive skill players, but they had solid players at every position. They shored up the pass rush when they got Justin Houston from the Chiefs. He had a solid season. So, they're a team that I think is going to surprise a lot of people. And honestly, guys, drafting an explosive guy like Jonathan Taylor, I think is really, really going to take them up a notch. Phillip Rivers is certainly a step up from Jacoby Brissett. No matter what you think about his turnovers, he's definitely a step up from Jacoby. I think they take this division in a close fashion, though. I don't think they're going to dominate. And so, number 2 here, guys, I have the Tennessee Titans. And the reason I don't have them winning the division is because I believe that they're a one-dimensional team on offense. If Derrick Henry can't get going, this team isn't going to win as many games as we saw, and in as dominant fashion as we saw last season. You basically, all of their success towards the second half of the season and throughout the postseason was because of Derrick Henry. Him running the ball like an absolute truck, just barreling through guys, showing us that he was an absolute beast, is what got the Tennessee Titans so far. I think it's going to be hard to do that sort of thing again. And of course, it's just going to be hard physically on a guy like Derrick Henry, who's constantly running through contact, constantly toting the rock. It's pretty unsustainable. So we'll have to see what happens, but I don't think they win the division this season. And, it's just that plain and simple. The Texans, guys, I have them here at number 3. And I think they have a shot to take the second place spot in this division because of Deshaun Watson. He's an unquestioned leader. He's super, super clutch. I know a lot of people think he's one of the most clutch quarterbacks in the NFL. And it's funny, my take on clutchness in the NFL, it's sort of interesting. There are guys, people, Tom Brady, people say he's probably, they argue he's the most clutch quarterback of all time, right? But that isn't necessarily always the best thing. Of course, it's amazing to be clutch. However, there are other quarterbacks who don't have as many fourth quarter game-winning drives because their team is so far ahead, right? If you look at guys like Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, guys that can run up the score on people, they don't need fourth quarter game-winning drives. They don't have to be clutch. They deliver so much early on in the game that they don't need to be clutch. So, of course, I just want to give my little take on the whole, attribute of being clutch, because a lot of people, can sometimes they'll rank another guy over another guy because he's more clutch. However, sometimes that guy is just, maybe not as good, and that's why he needs to be clutch, right? So again, with that, back to the Texans. Deshaun Watson, I think, he's a baller, an absolute killer, but losing DeAndre Hopkins, that was a huge blow. I don't think that's going to do very, very well for him. I don't think it's going to help. He's a guy who holds on to the ball a ton. He scrambles around the pocket looking to make the next big play, and I think, without those lethal weapons, of course, Brandon Cooks is a speedster. Yeah, that's great and all, but no one they got replaces DeAndre Hopkins, and I'm not happy with the moves that they've made. At the bottom here, I have the Jacksonville Jaguars. Can they be a surprise? Yes. I think, getting Kayvon Chase on the draft was very valuable. Picked up a solid corner in the draft as well. Gardner Minshew Mania, he's not a bad quarterback, but do I have more confidence in them than these other teams? No. So I guess the team that I would say has the biggest potential to make a big leap would be the Jaguars, but I don't have much faith in them to take that division. With that, though, guys, we're gonna take a short break, and when we get back, we'll continue rounding out the AFC, and then later on, we'll move over to the NFC. So stay tuned, guys. We'll be right back, right after the break.
You really can't underestimate the importance of having the right creative work for your brand or your product. Whether it's a logo, a website, a book cover, or an ad campaign, you really need a quality design to make that big difference pop and deliver your overall engagement and success in a competitive market. That's where Design Crowd comes in. Design Crowd has over 750,000 designers from Sydney to San Francisco ready to help you with awesome creative ideas. They make crowdsourcing work for you. So if you need a logo or you're working on your creative branding, you can go to designcrowd.com and post a brief describing the design you need. And then within about 2 to 7 days, you'll receive up to over 100 different designs from designers around the world. Then you pick the best design and approve payment to the designer. So you're only paying for the design that you want. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of freelancing, and out of crowdsourcing. And you don't have to be a huge company like Harvard Business School to use Design Crowd, although they have used it as well. You can start a project on Design Crowd for as little as $99. And if you go right now to designcrowd.com/health and wellness or enter the promo code health and wellness on their website, then our health and wellness listeners will receive up to $150 off of your design project. That's designcrowd.com/health and wellness or entering that promo code health and wellness.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines. They got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Alrighty, welcome back to the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Hope you all are doing well. Alright, we move on with these divisional rankings, guys. We just finished the AFC North and the AFC South, so we move on now to the AFC East. This is going to be a very, very interesting division here, guys, and I know a lot of people are just making, sort of picking the Bills as the clear-cut favorites to win this division, but this division right here is where I'm making, I think, my crazier picks, I guess. However, I will say I agree. I think as of right now, the Bills are the team that I think will take the division, which feels so strange to say. The Patriots have been the automatic lock to win that division for God knows how long, and I think now, even though, Bill Belichick, a lot of people consider him the GOAT of coaches. And, GOAT's not a term I really like to use, but I use it because, it's basically universal. Everybody knows what it means, and you pick up what I'm putting down when I say it. But people consider him the GOAT of coaches, and he always fields a great defense. But I think, with that offense, how much it sputtered with Tom Brady behind the wheel, I don't think people have much faith in them to do anything. So the Bills here, guys, I had them winning the division, but honestly, this division I think is going to be very, very close. I think it's going to be, how we see it's going to be the AFC least. We call the NFC East the NFC least. This here is going to be the AFC carbon copy of that, because there's no team here that I think is going to make a deep playoff push. None of them are Super Bowl contenders. I don't think, anyone's worried about the AFC East whatsoever, but I'll do these rankings anyway because I have to, right? They're part of all the divisions. Got to do it. So, number 1, Bills. Number 2, I actually have the Dolphins here making a super surprise. I've actually really liked the Dolphins offseason additions, taking care of that defense was very, very important, and they showed that was a priority for them. Picking up running backs Jordan Howard and Matt Breida, I think is really, really going to help because they needed a solid run game. Let's not forget, guys, Tua Tagovailoa, wonderful pick for this team. If he can stay healthy and he can be the star that we know he is, guys, this team is going to be the threat to go from worst to first for sure, and they will win this division. I think if Tua Tagovailoa starts most of the games this upcoming season, and he can stay healthy, the Dolphins will edge out the Bills to win the division. I don't think the Patriots are going to be doing much, and I don't think the Jets are going to be doing much. However, I will say, guys, I have the Patriots over the Jets, and I think the Jets will finish last in this division, but I think it's so close because it's going to come down to quarterback play. I think all of these teams, where they rank in their division is going to come down single-handedly to the quarterback play. Do we like any of these quarterbacks, honestly? Of course we love Tua, right? He was a star, top 10 pick, but his health concerns are very, very large. Even though I wanted the team to draft him early, and of course I support him, I'm not going to ignore the fact that there are severe health concerns. Josh Allen struggles with accuracy a ton. Not a guy who's going to, throw a bunch of touchdowns in a season. He can get it done with his legs, but he turns the ball over a bit too much, isn't accurate. Who is going to be the Patriots quarterback? We'll talk about this later, but we found out that Andy Dalton is not signing with the Patriots, and it seems that they're going forward with Jarrett Stidham. Do you guys like that? I don't. The quarterback I see here, honestly, with the most potential, to improve is Sam Darnold. I think Sam Darnold is a guy, we should be paying attention to. Hopefully he can take some steps forward. I actually like him over Josh Allen. I know a lot of people like Josh Allen. He has a huge arm. He's a bit of a more dynamic guy because he can get around with his legs. But I think Sam Darnold has potential to be a better complete quarterback than Josh Allen at this point in time. I think at this point, Josh Allen the fact that he's not that accurate says a lot. I think, he needs to be working hard like Lamar Jackson. We give Lamar Jackson a lot of crap for the accuracy issues, but he's shown that he's putting in time, working hard to be an accurate thrower of the football, taking care of the football, not turning the ball over. And Josh Allen hasn't really done that for me yet. Hasn't done enough to show me he's working to be a very complete passer and a good thrower of the football. So I have this division: Bills, Dolphins, Pats, Jets. But man, this one is one you can sort of shake up in a hat and just pick one, and you'll have a reason. You'd be justified for having any of these guys winning the division. So very interesting division. They're going to end up being the NFC least of the AFC. So we'll see how it goes. And now to finish out the AFC guys, the AFC West, my beloved AFC West. And this is an easy one. Save the best for last. The Chiefs are going to win this division. Now, I don't think there's much doubt about it. As long as Patrick Mahomes is in town, the Chiefs are always going to be in contention to win this division. I think even after, the weapons are gone, like Tyreek and Travis Kelce, I think, we're going to be okay as long as he's the captain of the ship. We've seen Aaron Rodgers do it for how long without ever having, first-round talent to throw to. And I think will be just fine. So the Chiefs, guys, a clear-cut team to win the AFC West next season. I don't think I need to say much about that. I talk about them all the time. About their offensive weapons. The defense, of course, has been an issue, but clearly wasn't that much of an issue, right? Number 2, I actually have the Las Vegas Raiders here. Actually, I almost said Oakland. Las Vegas Raiders here, guys. I think I put them here because out of the other 3 teams in the AFC West, I have the most confidence in them and their quarterback play. Not saying Derek Carr is some elite thrower of the football, but he did come off of, I believe it was a career season for himself. He did very, very well. And, adding Henry Ruggs. Now, I know, we take these speed guys with a grain of salt, right? Because it's not just all about speed, but he's a dynamic playmaker. I think they're adding their very own Tyreek Hill of sorts. Josh Jacobs was an absolute stud. I think, John Gruden, sort of finally settling into his own. The first couple years were kind of a mess, trading Khalil Mack and that whole drama that was happening, all that stuff, the rebuild sort of coming into its own. And I think they can finish here at the number 2 spot. And that is because, again, the quarterbacks here I'm not really confident in after that. Number 3, I actually have the Los Angeles Chargers. And that's because they're a solid team that just severely underperformed. They're a team that a lot of people picked to make a playoff run last season. It just didn't come together. After the offseason, though, adding Chris Harris Jr., that defense is very, very scary. Derwin James, Chris Harris Jr., Joey Bosa, that team is, and I believe they still have Melvin Ingram. It's pretty scary. So they definitely, I think right now at this point in time, have the the best defensive end duo in the AFC West. Their defense is very, very solid. I believe Desmond King is his name. So his name was slipping my mind. They have a solid cornerback. Casey Hayward on that team. I mean, man, that defense is pretty scary. They got Austin Eckler coming out of the backfield. He's finally the lead back. Tyrod Taylor, I think, while not going to be something spectacular, he'll get the job done. Hunter Henry, Keenan Allen, I mean, it goes on. Mike Williams, great jump ball kind of guy. They're going to be, I think, my team, the candidate to go from worst to first. That team to sort of surprise everyone and make big improvements. So I have the Chargers third, and that would leave the Broncos last. Just because I haven't seen enough of Drew Lock, guys. I don't really have faith in him at this point in time. Could he flourish? Could he become a more quality guy? Yes. But he was a bit inconsistent last season. I mean, I saw the Chiefs secondary sort of lock him down, and, the Chiefs secondary really wasn't anything too crazy. The defense isn't anything too crazy. So when you're getting shut down by the Chiefs defense, something's up. So Chiefs, Raiders, Chargers, Broncos. Chargers are my team that I think might come and surprise everyone. So with that, guys, we round out the AFC. Of course, with any moves that happen, these rankings might change. But those are my pretty clear cut. I believe I did a surprise candidate for every division. If I didn't, I'm sorry. But with that, we'll take a short break, and when we get back, guys, we're going to tackle the NFC. So stay tuned, guys, and enjoy the break.
You really can't underestimate the importance of having the right creative work for your brand or your product. Whether it's a logo, a website, a book cover, or an ad campaign, you really need a quality design to make that big difference pop and deliver your overall engagement and success in a competitive market. That's where Design Crowd comes in. Design Crowd has over 750,000 designers from Sydney to San Francisco, ready to help you with awesome creative ideas. They make crowdsourcing work for you. So if you need a logo or you're working on your creative branding, you can go to designcrowd.com and post a brief describing the design you need. And then within about 2 to 7 days, you'll receive up to over 100 different designs from designers around the world. Then you pick the best design and approve payment to the designer. So you're only paying for the design that you want. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of freelancing and out of crowdsourcing. And you don't have to be a huge company like Harvard Business School to use Design Crowd, although they have used it as well. You can start a project on Design Crowd for as little as $99. And if you go right now to designcrowd.com/health and wellness or enter the promo code health and wellness on their website, then our health and wellness listeners will receive up to $150 off of your design project. That's designcrowd.com/health and wellness or entering that promo code health and wellness.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Alrighty, people, welcome back. We continue our divisional rankings now, moving on to the NFC, and we start, just like we did with the AFC, with the NFC North. Now, this one is definitely an interesting one. Definitely a division that's had some drama as of late, regarding the Green Bay Packers. And that's the team that's starting off our list for today. Packers number 1. Now, I know that they've had recent drama with Aaron Rodgers, and who knows if he's going to finish his career in Green Bay at this point. I don't believe that he will. I think that, the Jordan Love drafting rubbed him the wrong way, and I think this is going to cause a lot of friction, a lot of tension. No matter what Aaron Rodgers does on the field, I do have to admit, even though I love watching him play, one of my favorite quarterbacks, he is not the best leader. He's a diva, not someone, not the most ideal personality traits to match up with the talent that he has. He's not Antonio Brown, but, you guys know what I'm talking about. However, I think, all that aside, Aaron Rodgers is still the best quarterback in this division. It's pretty clear. No one's really even close. Matthew Stafford is a solid quarterback, but he needs to stay on the field, right? And, I'm not sure that the Vikings, though they are a solid team, and I like their run game a lot, that they can dethrone the Green Bay Packers right now. The division is not the strongest, right? So I have the Green Bay Packers number 1. Their offense, was pretty much the same as it was last season. Their defense was pretty solid, definitely stepped up. Do I think they go 13-3 again? No, but I think they win this division, and just because the teams aren't that strong. The only team that I can see competing with the Packers at this point in time would be the Minnesota Vikings at number 2. That team's run game with Dalvin Cook is scary. I think, Kirk Cousins fits well into that system. I think, having them run the ball a lot, it's sort of like a Ryan Tannehill kind of thing where you can run the ball a lot, rely on the running back, and, Kirk Cousins can come in and do his job. Yes, he has trouble showing up during big games, but, he did, take out the New Orleans Saints, and, he's shown that sometimes he can perform in the big moments. So we'll have to see what happens there, of course, but, as we know, they got Justin Jefferson, who's going to help with the receiving game, and the move of Stephon Diggs to the Buffalo Bills. I think, like I said, these are the main threats to the Green Bay Packers. At number 3, I'm putting the Lions here, guys. I think, they're slowly coming into their own under Matt Patricia. They haven't been anything spectacular, but I think adding DeAndre Swift, a lot of people might be sleeping on this move. I know a lot of people think that, they're going to have a, running back by committee situation with Kerryon Johnson. I don't think Kerryon Johnson can stay healthy long enough to sort of etch out a role here. And I think DeAndre Swift might come in here and be explosive and be a number 1 back. Of course, we'll have to see what happens. But that's just my opinion. Matthew Stafford coming back healthy. Kenny Golladay is still on that team who, they're calling him Baby Megatron for a reason, right, guys? Kenny Golladay is a very skilled receiver, very fantasy relevant also, just for those of you who didn't know. And having Matthew Stafford there is really, really going to help. Remember, they got Jeff Okudah to replace, the move of Darius Slay. And I think, their team, they would be my pick here to be the surprise, right? The one that sort of moves up in value. I don't think they're going from worst to first or anything like that. Nothing too drastic. But I think they perform better than people are expecting them to. At the bottom, I have the Chicago Bears, and I think, honestly, guys, that's for good reason. I mean, the Chicago Bears, after a couple years ago have been largely disappointing. Mitchell Trubisky and the offense is just, it's night and day. It's just a flip-flop of the Chiefs 2 years ago where the offense was just lighting it up. 40 points a game, it seemed like, couldn't be stopped. And then the defense was absolutely horrible. That was the Chicago Bears last season and the season prior where, the defense is so amazing. They're doing all these things, so many takeaways, scoring so much, and then the offense gets on the field and you're kind of just like, oh man, I hope the defense can bail them out. It just kind of sucks for Chicago Bears fans. They took Trubisky so high, but they recently have declined his 5th-year option, probably signaling the end of Mitch Trubisky's time with Chicago in the near future. I don't think he's going to have a season where he proves his worth and all of a sudden they want to sign him to an extension. I just think Mitchell Trubisky is an average quarterback. I think he can be, sort of a journeyman backup kind of guy. He was just obviously the wrong choice for the Chicago Bears at pick 3, I believe it was, in the 2017 NFL draft. And I think, with him at the helm, I don't know what they do next season in comparison to these guys. The Packers and Vikings are going to be the powerhouse of the division. I think the Detroit Lions have a chance to shake it up and surprise us. But those would be my rankings for the NFC North. Now, perhaps the most interesting division in football right now, the NFC South. Guys, this division is very, very interesting, and it's one that I think is going to be very, very close. The NFC South, guys, if you don't know, is the division with the Buccaneers, the Saints, the Falcons, and the Panthers. Man, that top two is probably the closest top two that we're going to see next season, or even if it's not necessarily the closest, it's going to be the most skilled and closest top two. I think the Buccaneers and the Saints are going to be battling it out for the 1 and 2 spot in that division. And I honestly can't say that I'm 100% positive on who's going to come out on top. But as of right now, I'm going to pick the New Orleans Saints. And that's because, they're the consistent team. They've been doing it for a while. We have to see Tom Brady and this Bucs team get on the field and play together. I'm not going to fall into the same hype that I did with the Cleveland Browns. Of course, there were, people had, said, you need to be cautious with a guy like Odell and a diva, but I didn't necessarily fully buy into those warnings. Now I'm going to be extremely cautious with the Buccaneers, even though there hasn't been that sort of, reluctance with this squad. People aren't saying, oh, watch out because, this person could be a diva or make this go wrong, but I want to see it all go together and work perfectly. Of course, this offense is, it's out of this world. Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, Tom Brady, Gronkowski. I mean, geez, it's just a little bit ridiculous. And of course, Gronk and Brady are older now, but chemistry goes a long way. Knowing how your guy likes to run his routes, knowing when he likes you to throw the ball, that goes a long way. It's going to be very, very interesting watching this team. I think they give the Saints the best chance. The best run for their money at the number 2 spot in the division here, but either one of these teams could take the division. The Saints are just extremely well-rounded. Their roster's solid. Alvin Kamara is going to bounce back from the sort of disappointing season he had last season. Drew Brees isn't going to have any playoff flop games like he did last season. Hopefully, I think he's coming out in his last ride ready to win a Super Bowl. So Saints and Bucs are going to be fighting out for those top 2 spots. It's going to be extremely interesting to watch during the season. Definitely going to be tuning into those matchups when they come on. Now, these next two, they're sort of just the babies of the division. It feels like the Bucs and the Saints right now are big bad monsters, and the Falcons and Panthers can definitely, they can compete, but I think right now they're just both interchangeable at 3 and 4 here. I don't see, one overtaking the other, because while we see, the Falcons have just severely underperformed because they have talent on the roster, they're an offensive powerhouse, and I think they can definitely surprise a couple people. They would, I guess, be my, potential risers. But the Panthers performed pretty poorly last season, and I think a lot of people expect them to severely improve. So it's a tough division where I think, top 2 are interchangeable and the bottom 2 are interchangeable, but I don't think they leave those. I wouldn't put the Falcons and Panthers at 2 or 1, neither of those teams. So interesting division, going to be between the Buccaneers and the Saints. I don't think the Panthers are quite ready just yet. Now, with that, guys, we're going to take a short break, and then we're just going to keep going with the same old stuff. We finished with the NFC South. So we'll do the NFC East and the NFC West to finish out our divisional rankings for next season post-draft reaction. So stay tuned, guys. We'll be right back after this short break.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts, past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
welcome back to the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. We're just going to go straight into it, continuing our divisional rankings, guys. We're in the NFC. I believe we just finished the South, North, South, yes, East, West. So we're going to move on to the big, bad NFC least, guys. This one here is just, from year to year, it's just, who can be the shiniest turd? It's what it feels like. And even though, they homed the one of the most recent Super Bowl champions, this division has been quite disappointing in recent years. Now, after the draft, a lot of people, a lot of experts, their consensus top pick for the winner of the rookie draft was the Dallas Cowboys. And consequently, a lot of people are making that their pick for, the division winner. Now, I agree with that. I agree, and I'll have Dallas as my number one pick for the NFC East. I know, guys, like I always say, I'm as much of a Dallas Cowboy hater as the next guy, but right now, I wasn't too impressed with the Eagles draft, and I'm gonna give Mike McCarthy, the benefit of the doubt. Had this been maybe, Jason Garrett, maybe I'd be saying same old Cowboys, same old. But, with a new head coach, there could quite possibly be a culture change, and these players actually play up to their standards and how much, they're worth, how much what their contracts say, and they'll play up to the level that they're supposed to be playing, and the Cowboys will finish out on top. However, guys, as we all know, and as, the great Shannon Sharp always says, the Cowboys will do cowboyish things, and they might finish 8-8. But of course we'll have to see. So I have the Cowboys here at number one just because their offense is so explosive. They finished last year, I think it was the top offense in the league. Dak Prescott, you guys know this. Zeke Elliott, Tony Pollard as a backup who's a great player. Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup, and now they have CeeDee Lamb to man the slot. I think they're going to be very, very scary on offense. And yes, they lost Travis Frederick, but they drafted Tyler Biadasz. I'm pretty sure that's how you say his name, to help shore up the line. And of course, no one's going to come out their rookie year and be Travis Frederick, but they address the need, and I think they can come out and perform and be very, very good. Now, at number two, I have the Philadelphia Eagles, and that's because of Carson Wentz. I'm just going to go ahead and say that and make that very clear. I think Carson Wentz is actually, the best quarterback in this division. And I understand, you can give me all the arguments. Dak Prescott performed very, very well. His stats, very, very good. But do I ever feel like that team is Dak Prescott's team? No. Do I ever feel like if I needed Dak Prescott to make absolute magic, could I rely on him over Wentz? No. I think Carson Wentz, all around, there's something about him. He has more intangibles. He makes, the more spectacular throws. He makes things happen with literally zero help. When Dak Prescott, didn't have Ezekiel Elliott, we saw him play his worst football. Amari Cooper came in and he changed life for Dak Prescott and made it so much easier for him to, put up these huge numbers. And I will also say, it needs to be said, a lot of the yards and the points from Dallas came from when they were playing from behind. So they needed to throw the ball deep. They needed to basically spam passes and just be relentless through the air, so that needs to be said. We saw Carson Wentz take his team to the playoffs with no receivers. He didn't have a top running back. His offensive line banged up. Defense constantly banged up, so it seemed like that team was in shambles, and Carson Wentz, the guy who also can't ever stay healthy, was the one thing holding it together. So I have a lot of faith in him, and I have a lot of faith in the Eagles. So the race for the number one seed in the NFC least will be close. Right now I have the Cowboys edging out the Eagles, but very, very slightly. So sorry to all my friends and fam who are Eagles fans. Like I said, I live in Philadelphia. I encounter a ton of Eagles fans. But as of right now, this might be, I might have some bias here because I'm just disappointed in their draft. But as of right now, The Cowboys are number 1 for me. The Eagles are number 2, but they're going to be duking it out just like they did last season. I think we'll definitely have entertaining matchups there again. Now, number 3 and 4, guys, this is, one of those toss-up situations, sort of like the NFC South, where I think the top 2 are going to be a certain 2 teams, and the bottom 2 are going to be the other 2. But those bottom 2, I don't see surprising us and cracking the top 2. Right now, I don't think the Redskins are necessarily ready to do much, except go maybe 6-10, get another, earlier draft pick, keep building up the team. I don't believe in Dwayne Haskins at the moment, or Kyle Allen, whoever ends up starting for that team, because as of right now, Dwayne Haskins is looking more and more like a bust. Because, of course we can say the Redskins were a terrible team, but, the team did have Terry McLaurin, and Terry McLaurin was the one bright spot on that team. He was a very, very good receiver in his rookie year, and he's only going to grow and get better. The Giants, I think I'll put them over the Redskins just because I like their team better as a whole, and I just love, Saquon Barkley. Daniel Jones, I think, is a better quarterback than any of the quarterbacks that the Redskins have, and I think he'll come more into his own, and he'll learn to hold on to the football and turn the ball over much less, and I see them, to me, they would be the candidate for a potential surprise. But again, I don't see them, beating out the Eagles or the Cowboys. So I guess the surprise would be them winning 7 games, 8 games, but being third in the division. Maybe they go 9-7 and are third in the division. But it's hard to sort of see them being a top 2 team. So for the NFC East, that's how we'll finish that off. And now to finish off the NFC conference, we talk about the NFC West. This division is probably going to be the toughest to call. Honestly, this division could go any way. If I saw any order here, and it's not like the AFC East where it's just because they're all so, mediocre. This is because these teams are very, very solid. Of course, the Rams severely underperformed last season, but, I don't think everyone expects them to be that bad much longer. Of course, they don't have Todd Gurley anymore, so which is why I have them ranked lower in this division, but I think people could see them bouncing back as well. Just to put this here, just to put the list out, though, I will start with my number 1, and it's sort of reluctant, the number 1 that I have here. It's almost like I don't want them at number 1. The 49ers. I have the 49ers here, guys, because what Kyle Shanahan has done, and possibly with a lot of help from his father, is create a solid young football team, a solid, effective young football team on both sides of the football. Their defense was outstanding last season. Their offense was also outstanding last season. They weren't the craziest, passing attack, but their run game was pretty savage, honestly. Of course, they lost Matt Breida, but they didn't need Matt Breida for that running attack, and expect them to pick up right where they left off on offense. They also added Brandon Ayuk, so that's another receiving threat who I think will end up being an upgrade from Emmanuel Sanders, and they'll actually use Brandon Ayuk a bit more. But of course, we'll have to see. They still have George Kittle, guys. They still have Deebo Samuel. Still have Kyle Juszczyk. That team is solid, and I think, though, they have the best shot right now to win the division. But at number 2, I'm going with the Arizona Cardinals, guys. I know, the Seahawks are still in this division, but, man, the Cardinals are looking good. I have faith in Kyler Murray to take that year 2 step, the step we saw Lamar take, the step we saw Mahomes take. I believe in Kyler Murray here, and I think he can lead this team to possibly win the division. This team is the reason why I didn't want to put the 49ers at number 1. This team is clear-cut, should be the consensus choice for everyone to be a team that can go from worst to first very, very quickly. According, I think it was to Charles Davis, 15 of the past 17 seasons, there's been a team that's gone from worst in the division to first in the division. The Cardinals would be my pick, my clear-cut pick. I think they're, with the additions they've made on the offense, and, I know Isaiah Simmons might not have been the best pick for them early in the draft. He's going to add so much dynamic play to their defense. I think they might let go of Hassan Reddick and put Isaiah Simmons there at linebacker. They did add Josh Jones, who was a highly touted offensive line prospect that just fell. And I think they're ready to sort of start their takeover of that division. So at number 2, I got the Cardinals. At number 3, I had the Seahawks, but they're a team that's going to be competing all year for one of those top 2 spots for sure. Russell Wilson is a dog. I don't think he gets enough credit. I think he deserves much more credit than what people give him, what the media gives him. He doesn't get enough attention either. That man has put the team on his back for years and years and years. And of course, the lack of recognition and attention has to do with how well those defenses performed over the years and during the Super Bowl runs and the Legion of Boom and just how much talent they have on the other side of the ball. That the offensive side doesn't get much love, but Russell Wilson he can carry a team. He's clutch. He's mobile. He can improvise. He's a total package. Honestly, he's a great guy. I mean, the Seahawks are a great team as well, but I think right now more electricity lies with the 49ers and the Cardinals. So therefore, I have the Seahawks at number 3, but guys, they could easily be top 2. Now, I know I spoke well about the Rams and talked about them possibly being able to bounce back, but as of right now, to me, they're my least favorite pick in this division. I don't think they're going to do as much as the Seahawks, Cardinals, and 49ers. I'm not as excited about their roster as I am about these other teams. Jared Goff is really, he's not worth the money they gave him. I never really believed in him. That those years that he was having that were phenomenal were because of Todd Gurley. I've always said this. I always believe that, it's sort of that situation where Ryan Tannehill can do so well because Derrick Henry is such a threat. When you play action, there's guys wide open. I think Jared Goff benefits from the talent around him, and he's not as much of an amazing quarterback as he may have seemed when Todd Gurley was being, an absolute beast, and Cooper Kupp is on that team. Robert Woods is a solid receiver. He did have Brandon Cooks as well, so, he had several weapons that I think people really overlooked and gave Jared Goff too much credit for. So, Rams are last, guys. Watch out for the Cardinals. 49ers are, the pick right now, but they can easily be dethroned by either the Cardinals or the Seahawks. So with that, guys, we're going to go into our break. And when we come back, we're going to talk some QB, drama, news, and all that good stuff. So we'll be right back after this short break.
Are you looking to get your college football fix? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? The GSMC College Football Podcast is your ticket to all things college football. Join us as we talk college football from the national championship, the college rivalries, the bowl game, to the Heisman Trophy. To which conference is the best? We've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, the Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between. Download the GSMC College Football Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Guys, welcome back. We now move on to talk about the quarterback situations that have been, getting some buzz in the NFL. And I know I'm a little late here, guys, but I have to talk about the Andy Dalton situation. A couple days ago, I get a notification on my phone just to sort of set the scene here, and I see breaking. I'm like, okay. I see the name Andy, and then, the rest of the notifications kind of hidden, and I'm like, holy moly, let's see where Andy Dalton has landed. Then I see the team name, and I honestly was in a lot of shock. I see Cowboys sign Andy Dalton to a so-and-so deal. I didn't even read the details. I just honestly was straight out shocked. This deal to me, at this time, doesn't make sense. You still have to pay Dak Prescott. You have all this drama with Dak Prescott. You guys can't figure out a number. He's supposed to be the face of your franchise, but you don't know what you want to do at this point. And you sign a guy. Now listen, guys, no matter what you think of Andy Dalton and the Cincinnati Bengals, Andy Dalton is a quality starter in the NFL. No matter what, they haven't won many games, and of course they don't do much. But Andy Dalton is by no means a bum or a scrub. And I think he definitely has the potential to start on a team. I'd take him over a guy like Tyrod Taylor, for sure. So, this is just honestly a bad look for the Dallas Cowboys. And of course, you got the Dallas Cowboys, the reports come out that, the Andy Dalton signing is not, meant as a threat to Dak Prescott. But, I mean, guys, that sure looks like a threat to me. Kind of looks like insurance, so it just feels like, and I get it. The Cowboys are basically, saying, just in case Dak Prescott might hold out, we'll have insurance like that. But I honestly wanted and expected that another team, who needed more of a starter would sign someone like Andy Dalton. Of course, the reports have been that the Patriots didn't really show interest in Andy Dalton. And of course, we know a lot of people slated him to go there. But, I just didn't see, I honestly saw Andy Dalton at the end of the day either going to the Patriots or staying on the Cincinnati Bengals to help sort of usher the new era of Joe Burrow in. I know Andy Dalton's only 32, and while that's not the youngest, it's certainly not the oldest. He could still help, Joe Burrow grow, but I do understand, why they wanted to let him go. He was slated to, I think it was around $18 million they were going to have to pay him to keep him, and, I get it, the business side of the thing, but for the Cowboys here, I don't think it makes sense. And if you guys have been paying attention, to Twitter at least, you could see Dez Bryant, definitely chimed in on the situation here. I'll read what he said. Nothing against Andy Dalton because I think he's a great player, but the Cowboys are extremely out of line. Pay Dak. I watched the Cowboys pay Tony twice, once without a winning record. I guess the Cowboys viewing the QB position as a plug-in piece because of this dominant offense. Whew. And, whether you respect Dez Bryant or not, whether you respect his opinion, I think he makes some valid points here. I know, of course, people are just going to look at him as, he has something against the Cowboys. They didn't want him back, yada, yada, yada. But, again, someone responds to him, nah, Dalton deal, quote, not meant as a threat to Dak. Quote, I was just told. He goes, I was told a lot of things before and things ended up false. Dalton has been a starter damn near his whole career. So again, it's something along the lines of what I said. It's a guy who I thought could go be on a team with a much less secure starter, not a starter who's about to get a massive extension. It was also reported that the Steelers offered a better deal to Andy Dalton, which I think that could have been a better situation for Andy Dalton. Ben Roethlisberger's old. He's coming off an injury. He could end up having a terrible season, after missing a whole season of football with an arm injury. So to me, that made a little more sense, but I don't know. I don't know. Andy Dalton's from Texas, so I think, that might have factored into it as well. But I don't like the move for the Dallas Cowboys. Of course, Andy Dalton's going to be a very quality backup, but I really don't like the signing here. It's just not a good look for the Cowboys, and honestly, I don't know if it makes the most sense for Andy Dalton football-wise. Of course, for his life, if that's the best thing he decided to do, to head back to, home state and all that good stuff, that's great for him. But we move on, guys, because I want to talk about another quarterback, one whose name is certainly going to be coming up because another quarterback was signed, Cam Newton. Guys, the recent reports with Cam Newton have basically been Cam Newton will not sign to a team to be a backup. Okay. Message heard loud and clear, and it makes a lot of sense why Cam Newton hasn't been signed to a team yet. For a while there, I was just saying, I don't know what's going on. The league is sort of blackballing him. Not sure why. I understand he has the injury concerns, but we've seen much stupider moves be made at the quarterback position. So the fact that Cam Newton hasn't been signed doesn't really make sense to me. The Ron Rivera's reasons for, a lot of people, said, oh, they could have a reunion. But Ron Rivera said, he didn't want Cam Newton basically to come in and sort of mess up the dynamic they have with the young QBs. Dwayne Haskins, Kyle Allen, those are guys they want to build up. And they thought, maybe bringing Cam Newton in, a veteran who's a skilled veteran when healthy, might mess up their whole process. So that did make sense. But honestly, I gotta say, guys, I like this stance by Cam Newton. Believe in yourself, believe in what you're worth, believe in your value. Cam Newton is certainly not, this is not Nate Peterman, saying, I'm not signing to a team to be a backup, right? This is Cam Newton, who was a former MVP, and while he hasn't returned to that form, I think if he's 100% healthy, he can be very, very dynamic and explosive and a great starter for any team in the National Football League. Now, not the best for fantasy football, right? I think if you guys still believe Cam Newton could be on a team, you just stash him on your team. I don't think he'll be drafted in many leagues unless there's a lot of Cam Newton fans or guys who want to take that risk to waste a roster spot waiting on a guy who's waiting on a quarterback to get injured. But if a quarterback does get injured and Cam Newton is signed, look for him to definitely be fantasy relevant. Other than that, though, do I believe that Cam Newton should have been signed? Yes. It makes a lot of sense now why he hasn't been. I'm liking his approach. It's not often you see this sort of thing happen, but it could pave the way for other guys, who want to be valued a certain way. I like this move. And even though Cam Newton's sort of been, he's sort of a diva and, he's always on the social media with his weird fonts, this is something I can definitely get behind because he shouldn't be doing something like Jameis Winston signing 1 year for $1 million. I understand, Jameis threw 30 interceptions, but you got to sort of value yourself more than that. You're a young guy who's shown that he can, throw 5,000 yards. You know what I mean? That's no easy feat no matter what. So, Cam Newton, right on you. I hope to see you on a team. I don't think that team will be the Patriots at this point. The Patriots seem like they're happy with what they've got. Didn't seem to, press to draft a quarterback in the draft. So I don't know where Cam Newton's going to end up, guys. Just wanted to give my opinion on, the latest that's happened with him, because I think it's a very, very interesting situation. It feels like almost, it's not, definitely not similar. But when Colin Kaepernick wasn't on it, he has never been, picked up by a team ever since, the whole kneeling thing. It's like, you start to ask yourself, why is this guy not on a team yet? And I'm glad we kind of get some sort of clarity here and closure. That the report is that Cam Newton is not on a team because basically he's not going to be somebody's backup. Hopefully, and the thing is, I don't wish injury on any player, no matter what. They could be, on a team that I hate, on a rival team. I never wish injury on a player. But, hopefully Cam Newton gets a certain chance. Hopefully it doesn't have to be because someone gets injured. Maybe it's because the team, moves on from a guy or what have you, but I'm hoping Cam Newton gets a chance next season. I think he could definitely shine. But with that, we're going to go into our next break, guys. When we get back, we'll get into our final segment to wrap up the show for you guys. So stay tuned, guys. We'll be right back.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Alrighty, people, welcome back to the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. We now enter our last segment of the day by bringing back Marcus's 3 wishes, guys. Yes, it's back like it never left. Haven't done it in a while, and the last time I did it, pretty sure I cheated on some of the wishes there, or it was, I think, me telling you guys all the wishes that I sucked on or that didn't come true. So we're bringing it back. Same as always, guys. 3 wishes that I have at this point in time for the NFL. So let's just get started here, guys. Wish number 1. Haven't said that in a while. Wish number 1 is for Tua Tagovailoa to get an opportunity to start for the Miami Dolphins next season. And why is that? Guys, as of right now, Tua Tagovailoa is unranked. in a lot of quarterback rankings for fantasy football. I like to use ESPN. I know everybody, likes something different. I like the ESPN's interface. I like their rankings. I like watching their podcasters and stuff like that. I think Matt Berry's great and all that. But anyway, Tua Tagovailoa is not ranked at the moment. I think, should Ryan Fitzpatrick do the typical Ryan Fitzpatrick, where he throws for 400 yards, multiple games, and then all of a sudden goes back and shows us why he's just a human, Tua Tagovailoa might get a start. And I think, once he gets with the team, they can evaluate his health, and, they see that he's healthy, because all reports are that right now, he is healthy, or that's what the reports have been. And I mean, I guess you have to take those with a grain of salt, right? Because, it's hard to tell. And of course, he's not going to tell anyone that he's unhealthy if he is. But I think if Tua gets the start here, he has a chance to flourish, like Ryan Fitzpatrick. And I know if at any point during the season, last year, guys, you found yourself in a hole and you had to start Ryan Fitzpatrick, then you should be starting Tua Tagovailoa, right? You're willing to do that. I think Tua Tagovailoa, getting a bunch of starts on a week-to-week basis, because I don't think, if he doesn't start during the season, his totals won't be as high as other guys. But on a points-per-game basis, can definitely be a top 20 kind of quarterback, I think definitely a top, maybe even a top 15 from what we've seen, guys. And I'm not saying, that team is loaded with talent, but, you got Matt Breida receiving back. He can make a ton of plays. Devontae Parker was a stud. Matt Gesicki, the tight ends, coming into his own. He was a serviceable tight end, definitely down the stretch. And, Jordan Howard, definitely a threat at running back as well. No bum there. Of course, my wishes prior were that Tua Tagovailoa, got drafted early by the Dolphins. I didn't want him to slip because I thought a team would be making a mistake letting him slip. It's a situation in which, if he ends up unhealthy, right, it's something that everyone expected. If he misses a bunch of time, has health concerns, even his whole career, you can say, what? Well, they took the shot on him. It didn't work out that well. Everyone had concerns. But why wouldn't you take him? You have to try to look like the genius team. You don't want to look like the dumb team that passed on the guy, right? So, if he turns out to be a superstar, as he was in college, then the Miami Dolphins are going to be extremely excited to get basically the heir after Dan Marino. They really haven't had a quarterback since then. And so I'm hoping that Tua Tagovailoa gets a chance to show what he's worth, show that he's a quality starter. And of course, I mean, if that doesn't happen, that's fine too. Sitting out of a year, learning behind Ryan Fitzpatrick. Not saying that Ryan Fitzpatrick is a GOAT or anything, but just sometimes learning behind veterans. Sometimes, what you can't play, you teach. Right? So just because you're not the best football player doesn't mean you're not a great football teacher or mentor. So it could definitely help him to sit behind someone for a year and learn some tips and tricks. But Tua Tagovailoa, guys, I think could be, definitely a fantasy relevant guy should he ever be a starting quarterback on a week-to-week basis. All right, that's it for wish number 1. Wishes kind of having to do with quarterbacks a lot today. Wish number 2, guys, is for the Bears to get rid of Mitchell Trubisky. I should reword my wish. It's for Nick Foles to take the starting job from Mitchell Trubisky. Why? I think Mitchell Trubisky is a backup quarterback. I don't think he's the guy you want out there leading your team. To me, he doesn't scream, he's not, to me, clear-cut leader, face of the franchise, face of a locker room, voice of a locker room. That's not him to me. He's not the guy to go out there and make killer plays. Yes, he was getting involved on his feet more last season. Yes, he's an athletic guy, but he's not the killer. He's not the guy who's going to go out there and be the difference between winning and losing a game, unless you're talking about losing a game. He will definitely lose you some games, but no one's talking about the X factor being Mitchell Trubisky to win the game, right? So I think, Nick Foles, Mitchell Trubisky, I take, Nick Foles because, you might get him. If he comes off the bench for Mitchell Trubisky, he might just win you a Super Bowl. And, for some reason, Nick Foles has this sort of thing when he comes off of the bench, he can perform very, very well. There was a time when he was on Kansas City, and it only happened for one game, but Alex Smith got concussed. And Nick Foles steps in for Alex Smith and has a great game. So I think there's something about being on the bench for Nick Foles. I don't know if it's not having the pressure of being the franchise face or the franchise QB or, having to carry a team. There's something about being a backup for him that just does the job and gets him going. So I think, but besides that, I think the Bears need to move on from Mitchell Trubisky. If they do, and they stick with Nick Foles for now, they'll realize that they need to draft another quarterback, and they can finally find a solid quarterback. Because honestly, guys, I don't even know if they've had a solid quarterback since I was born. Oh my God, I can't believe I'm blanking on this guy's name. Oh, he went and he played for the Dolphins. I mean, that's how average he was, man. Blanking on the Bears QB. Who was basically their most notable one in recent memory, he went to the Dolphins, basically said, I don't care about being a leader, I just want to be a quarterback, play football. Hold on, guys, I'm going to find this because I'm just completely blanking on this. So I have Jay Cutler. Wow, I cannot believe I blanked on that guy's name. I mean, he wasn't anything special, but as in recent memory, Jay Cutler's been basically the biggest name at quarterback for the Bears in quite some time. So they need help at quarterback. They need a franchise guy. They missed on Mahomes. They missed on Deshaun Watson. They need to pick up, all the glass pieces that got shattered. So I think the first step is admitting they missed on Mitchell Trubisky. They got to get rid of him, move him somewhere to be a quality backup, and continue to rebuild. So, yes, that's my second wish. It sucks, right? I'm basically wishing for a guy to lose his starting job. But I don't look at it that way. I'm definitely no malintent. It's not because I don't like Mitchell Trubisky, nothing against the guy at all. I just want, that franchise to do what's best for them. And right now, having Mitchell Trubisky as their starting quarterback, it's not what's best for them. All right. Moving on to my last wish of the day. So for my last wish of the day, guys, it has to do with the Chiefs here, but is relevant to all of you fantasy footballers, guys. My last wish is for Clyde Edwards-Helaire to stay ranked where he is in terms of preseason fantasy football rankings. Right now, he's ranked as the 20th running back in ESPN fantasy football. I will take that any day of the week. Give me that. He's a guy that I'm going to be drafting probably earlier than most people, earlier than where he's ranked, just because I think he has tremendous upside. I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire is a guy who will easily compete for the starting position in Kansas City. They go and they get this guy in the first. So Kansas City hasn't picked in the first round. I believe it was, after Patrick Mahomes, and 2 years after that, we didn't pick in the first round. So, to pick this guy in the first round and not, see that, the 32nd pick as an opportunity to trade for more later picks, they believe in this kid. I believe that this kid will be the starter in Kansas City very, very soon, very, very early into the season. I don't think Damian Williams can keep up with him. He's only getting older. I believe Damian Williams will be turning 29, if I'm not mistaken. He's definitely in his late 20s. I'll actually double check that for you guys just to make sure I'm being accurate. Yes, he's 28 years old. He's only going to be getting older. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, fantastic receiving back. Many touted him as the best receiving back in the draft. And guys, if you're telling me that kid's going to be a top 20 kind of guy with upside, I'm definitely going to take that in an offense led by Patrick Mahomes with Andy Reid as the shot caller and Eric Bieniemy as the offensive coordinator. So I think, this is absolutely awesome for the Kansas City Chiefs. Absolutely awesome for fantasy footballers, guys. Look for this guy. If he's still on the board, 4th, 5th round, definitely take a shot on him. I don't think you guys are going to be disappointed taking this guy in the mid to later rounds. Maybe not 4th or 5th. That is quite early. I'm definitely getting too excited about this kid, but I think that he's definitely going to finish higher than 20th running back next season. Again, if you're doing standard scoring, though, of course that's going to factor in a bit differently. I'm always talking from a PPR, half PPR standpoint, where receiving backs are just basically MasterCard priceless. You know what I mean? Just catching passes is getting you points. And in an offense as prolific as the Kansas City Chiefs' offense, you're definitely going to want a running back that catches passes. So with that, guys, we're going to wrap up the show. I want to say thank you for listening to the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast, guys, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. Follow us on social media, guys, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, if you haven't done so already. We really appreciate it. Leave comments below. Leave reviews, guys. Let us know if we're doing good. Let us know if we're doing bad. Of course, guys, the fantasy football season is not in full swing yet, so we understand, why, it might be tough for you fantasy footballers out there. But we keep the show going with all this NFL talk, and we'll keep it going until the fantasy football season really gets into full swing. So, with that, guys, I want to wish you a good night. I hope you guys stay safe, stay happy, and stay healthy. And we'll see you here next time.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Fantasy Football Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.